Lesley Findlay here for vocaltechnique.ca. In this video we're going to talk about the diaphragm. The diaphragm is a very unusual muscle and not many people understand how it works or its attachments just because it is so unusual. It doesn't run along any part of the body where you could actually touch it, like say your leg muscles or your arm muscles or your facial muscles. You can't massage it because it transects the body. So where is it and how is it attached? Your diaphragm is an inverted bowl and it's high in the front and has a V-like formation, and then it wraps around at the bottom of the ribcage to the spine where it's attached, and there's long ligaments that stretch down to your lowest lumbar. The top of the diaphragm is a disc or a meniscus, and from that the muscle fibers radiate down towards the lower attachments of the ribs. So if you feel down your sternum and find the pointy bone at the bottom, you can palpate the bottom of the ribcage so that you can feel that quick descent forming a V, and then as you move your fingers out on your ribcage, you might feel the first floating rib, which is a couple of inches before the side of your body, and as you continue to palpate you might even feel the second floating rib because you'll feel a little point that's not attached to the ribs above it. From there you won't be able to palpate much. You could keep touching the bottom of the ribcage all the way to the spine, and then from there just feel how far it is from, say, your waist down to just above the sacrum, which is that triangle bone at the base of your spine. So the muscle fibers of the diaphragm are not paired with any other set of muscle, so they only work in one direction. If you look at the biceps and triceps, they're paired and they work in opposition to each other. The diaphragm has no pair. The diaphragm is a muscle that forces you to breathe in. As the diaphragm contracts, it pulls the center meniscus down, which creates a vacuum in the lungs, and air enters. And it compresses, it's compressing everything below it. So the only thing above the diaphragm are the lungs and the heart, and everything else in the belly and the abdomen are below the diaphragm. So you will get a compression of, say, the stomach, the liver, maybe even the intestines. Everything's getting compressed each time you breathe in. So the diaphragm, in effect, has a two-stage process as it contracts. It contracts down to compress what's below it, and when it can no longer compress what's below, that meniscus becomes a pivot point and it starts rotating the ribcage upward. So you could say the meniscus is here where my thumbs are, and my ribcage is rotating upward. Okay, so this is how we get a chest expansion when we breathe in deeply. So in singing, you want to minimize the compression and maximize the ribcage rotation, because that's where you're going to get the deepest breath, because the floating ribs in particular can expand quite a bit, and the lower ribs above them do have some movement. So that is where the biggest breath is going to happen. And also if you look at a diagram of the lungs, which you'll find is the same shape as the ribs, minus the heart, I guess, in between there. The largest portion of the lungs is on the lower end. So if your ribcage is too locked, you'll find, or your waist is too locked, you'll find that your breath is very high, and when it's high like that, the tension creeps into the throat every time you breathe. So a singer doesn't want tension in their throat when they're breathing. So the full expansion of the ribcage has to be maintained, and you incrementally release as you start to sing, which is what funnels the breath back towards the vocal cords. So once again, the diaphragm is not a paired muscle. It's only responsible for helping you breathe in. It's not responsible for making you to sing. As you're singing, the diaphragm is relaxing, so you can't do anything like pull the diaphragm or sing from the diaphragm. These are, terms we hear bandied about. They really don't have much to offer us in terms of training. And oftentimes they will kind of put people off or down a wrong track because they'll think, oh, I'm supposed to sing from my diaphragm, and then they'll try to do that, and they may or may not find out that that's physically impossible. You cannot sing from your diaphragm. So, and you can't pull it, you can't do any of these other things. As you're speaking, as you're exhaling, as you're singing, your diaphragm is relaxing. So the control of the breath has to transfer to another set of muscles. And that other set of muscles, of course, is the intercostal muscles. The diaphragm expands the ribcage, and after that the intercostal muscles have to kick in to control the breath, and that's how you control the air as you sing. So if you find that you have really short phrases, you can't control your breath, perhaps your tone is really breathy, I would give you specific exercises to work out the external intercostal muscles and detach them from, because they naturally contract when you do a forced breath in, not a relaxed breath in, but a forced breath. So what we have to do next is detach the diaphragm from the ribcage contraction, and we work at contracting the external intercostals on their own without the assist of the diaphragm. And then of course the third step is to contract those muscles as you start to sing, and that's what we call support. This is Lesley Findlay for vocaltechnique.ca. Thank you.